Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we'll be doing a first look at the game All Our Brothers, the Battle of Solferino, 1859, designed by Bryan Armor and published by Legion Wargames. This is using the blind sword system created by Hermann Luttmann, and very popular system that's been used to make a slew of Civil War games, some by Hermann Luttmann and others by other designers who have picked up his work and continued it. So let's take a look at this guy here. Take a look at the back real quick. All Our Brothers, the Battle of Solferino, 1859, is a chit pull system war game based on the blind sword system designed by Hermann Luttmann. On the morning of June 24th, 1859, the Allied armies of France and Piedmont, Sardinia, ran headlong into two Austrian armies camped on the plains of northern Italy with only the vaguest understanding of where their adversaries lay. Both high commands intended to march forward to the attack. The early rising Allied army stole the initiative from the Austrians and collided with their forward pickets before the sun had fully risen. Thus began the Battle of Solferino, which would draw into the fray over 250,000 men, the largest general engagement in Europe since the Battle of Leipzig in 1813. Before the day was through, nearly 40,000 men would lay dead or wounded, and the Austrian armies would be decisively driven from the field. The Battle of Solferino was the last battle in world history in which all of the armies were under the personal command of their monarchs. And the battle produced human suffering on a scale that led directly to the formation of the International Committee of the Red Cross and the establishment of the First Geneva Convention. The battle itself was a grinding slugfest, often described as a soldier's battle, a deliberate slight to the often uninspired leadership of the generals and a tribute to an Allied victory gained only at the tip of the bayonet. With the belligerent armies exhausted and alarmed by the potential expansion of the conflict, France and Austria quickly came to terms at Villafranca, disappointing the Sardinians, but ending the conflict known as the Second Italian War of Independence, placing Italy firmly on the road to unification. All right, so we have here some of the counters. We'll see these inside the box. You can see our game scale. The unit size is brigades and batteries. Map scale 500 meters per hex. Turns are 1 hour per turn. Playing time for scenarios 4 to 6 hours. For the full game, 12 plus. Has a 22 by 34 inch map, a 20-page rulebook, 12-page scenario book, 352.6-inch game counters, 9 player aids, and as I said, designed by Bryan Armor, based on the blind sword system, development by Kim Kanger, counter graphics by Kim Kanger, and map graphics by Edmund Hudson. Number of players, 1 or 2. Game complexity, medium, and solitaire, medium high. So let's take a look inside the box. Okay, here we go. All right, so we have some baggies and 2d6 and a d10. And we have our rule book. So we'll take a look at this first, which is how I usually do these things. So we have our introduction here on the front page with a quote from Memory of Solferino by Henry Dunant. And then on the morning, you get the kind of what the back of the box said. And it does point out here that Vittorio Emanuele II was variously called the Kingdom of Sardinia, Kingdom of Savoy, Sardinia, Piedmont, Sardinia, or Savoy, Piedmont, Sardinia. He actually, I believe, became the first king of the unified Italy. Then we have here game scale and maps, which we saw. We saw the scale on the back of the box. 1 strength point equaling about 600 infantry, 450 cavalry, or 3 to 4 guns. The map covers the Solferino battle and has a hex grid over it to facilitate movement and range. Numerous terrain features with movement and or combat effects. Consult the terrain chart. Towns have red roofs on their houses and names printed with a large font. Villages have light red roofs and printed names with smaller fonts. There are 3 elevation levels on the map, from lowest to highest: flat, rolling, and raised. Slopes are hex sides. Where there is a steeper elevation difference between 2 hexes, upslope is the movement through a slope hex side. from the lower hex to the higher hex, which makes sense. And we have our combat units, and we can take a look here at the counter. Better look at this a little up close here. So you can see the unit ID at the top, formation color, right? This is all fairly familiar stuff here. Sorry about the glare. Then we have the morale rating in the upper left, the 6. Movement value is a 7. Strength point 1. Weight class. Then you have the battle worn status, the band there in the middle, the identification, and formation division identification, actually. Morale rating, shaken is reduced the unit's morale rating by 1. Disrupted, you reduce by 2. Then the movement value, strength points, etc. A unit strength point value is used in fire and assault combat. Some units receive a +1 column shift in fire combat due to their high quality. Strength point, French chasseur and medium artillery and Austrian Jaeger. They are recognized by their white SP value. Okay. Weight class. Cavalry and some artillery units have a weight class shown through different symbols on the counter. For cavalry, it's referenced when making a cavalry charge. The classifications are light, that's a green circle, medium is a blue square, and a red triangle is heavy. Unit status, most units possess 3 status levels: fresh, battle worn, and broken. That is a key component of blind swords. A unit on its front full strength side is in fresh status. A unit that has received a casualty hit is flipped to its reduced strength side and is battle worn. And once a unit is on its battle worn side, it cannot be flipped back over to fresh. A unit that fails a break test is broken and thereby removed from the game. We have detachments. Units with 1 or 2 strength points only on their front side are detachments. They do not have a battle worn backside. They are either fresh or broken. HQ units. I don't want to go through everything because it'll take too long. So you do have HQ units and commander-in-chief units and so on. And there's an example of the counters right here. We have markers such as the morale hits for shaken and disrupted, victory point markers, control markers, dice and rounding convention. The game includes 2 6-sided dice and 1 10-sided die. The 0 value on the D10 is read as a 10. Any halving of any value, rating, or points is rounded down but never below 1. So a 5 is rounded to 2, a 3 is down to 1, but a 1 remains a 1. Stacking limits, no more than 10 strength points in a hex. The limit can be temporarily exceeded as units pass through hexes during movement. Any number of HQ units and markers may freely stack with any friendly units. If units are overstacked, reduce strength points by placing shaken or disrupted markers as required to get to the 10. Strength point limit, unit owner's choice. If a unit is halted by defensive fire while moving through a hex with friendly units, resulting in overstacking, it must backtrack to the last legal hex pass through. If a unit moves into an overstacked hex during a retreat, it simply continues to retreat until in a legal hex. 6 strength point threshold and the front line. The topmost 6 strength points in a stack represents the front line of a hex. This is decided by stacking orders. As such, 6 strength points provides a firing limit for fire combat. There you go. All units that contribute to the front line in a hex that is targeted by fire combat are subject to the combat result. Again, makes sense. Stacking order can only be changed during movement or retreat. A unit that's activated but doesn't move may still change its position within a stack. Units moving as a stack may reorder their stacking freely, but only at the start of the move. Changing stacking order adjacent to an enemy unit counts as movement and may trigger defensive fire. Units moving into a friendly occupied hex may take any place in the stacking order, but may trigger defensive fire if it places itself among the top 6. So if you're moving to the front, you may draw defensive fire. Pretty straightforward. Got force displays. We'll see those, I guess. Here's our sequence of play. Your planning phase with the event chit step, activation chit step, and the plotted order step, which is optional, and it's in 17.3. Chit draw phase, and then our activation phase where you have your HQ command step, your fire combat step, movement, assault combat, and then rally. And then the end turn phase, which is housekeeping and victory determination. And then we have, of course, as you might expect, the breakdown of what each phase and step means. Planning phase, your event chit step. Each player gathers all of his or her event chits, even though those still off map, face down in event chit box, and mixes them. Keep the French and Sardinian chits separated. Each player randomly selects a number of event chits according to the scenario, and that will tell the allied player to select French and or Sardinian chits. Place them in a single opaque draw cup, right? So that both players share without looking at the front side. Leftover event chits remain face down in the box and cannot be referenced for the remainder of the turn. So you don't exactly know what you're getting, which is a cool mechanic. One of many cool mechanics that Hermann Luttmann has come up with. And then we have our activation chit step. Next, both players determine which HQ activation and CIC activation charts are available this game turn per scenario rules and place them in the same draw cup. Shake the draw cup and place it nearby for easy access. Then you'll draw your chits, and that'll activate something or trigger an event. And you can hold I think you can hold the chit event. If the drawn chit is an event chit, the player who owns it may enact that event at any eligible time. Okay, and they talk about that in 6.3. Then you get your activation phase, and you do them in this order: HQ command, fire combat, movement, assault combat, and rally. And turn after all chits have been drawn and acted upon, both players conduct a housekeeping step where they clean up and adjust certain markers and tracks. Then you proceed to the next turn, in which, unless it's the last turn, in which case you determine who won. Activation chits, the commander-in-chief chits, so you get a look at all of them here. Napoleon III, Vittorio Emanuele, Franz Josef I. And then we've got event chits, information, HQ command steps. So you have postures that you can have an aggressive side or the defensive side showing. Then we have types of postures and explanation of what aggressive and defensive postures mean and what you can do when they're in those postures. Command range, in command status, out of command status. Again, I'm not going to go into all the details because we'll see it when we play. And if you played Blind Sword, you're probably familiar with it anyway. Austrian Corps activation, fire combat step, who's eligible, the minimum and maximum strength point values, combined unit fire. Ranges, effective and extended, canister, line of sight, firing unit and target are on the same elevation. So you have line of sight rules for different and same elevations, basically. Artillery mobility, here's the procedure for fire combat, column shifts. Results, you've got some examples here: casualty hits, low ammo, HQ units, and fire combat. Then we have our morale tests, break test, the movement step and how movement works, the different types of movement you can do. You do have road bonus and road march, a unit under defensive posture that moves from one major road hex to another connected major road hex, pays only a half a movement point to enter that hex. Overruns, engagement, who may engage, disengagement, free disengagement, defensive fire, op fire, assault declaration. So there are two event chits: Jaeger sharpshooters and Napoleon's guns allow for opportunity fire. This is fire combat that's conducted when the chit is played. An opportunity fire event chit may be played at any time during any friendly or enemy fire combat or movement step. After an enemy unit's action is announced, during the action, or after the action is completed. You have assault, cavalry charges. Here's the assault combat procedure, abandoning the position, assault differential combat, column shifts rather, assault combat results, retreats, breakthrough, rallying, morale, and turn phase. Then we have victory, determination, and our special rules. Thunderstorm, and then the optional rules for the commander-in-chief casualties, variable thunderstorm, plotted orders, and then the designer's corner with map notes and design notes. And then you have differences from other Blind Sword games, with Blind Swords being primarily a American Civil War system. I'm sure there are some differences in here. And then you have some references and further reading. I always like these because maybe you want to read up on this particular war or battle. We have our scenario booklet. Choose a scenario. So you get to final assault learning scenario. So there's a learning scenario. Perhaps we'll do this so you can see how the game is played. 9 to 10 at start. You've got not too many forces here, some French and some Austrians, 2 event chits for Austria, 1 for France. So that just means each turn you pick 2 out randomly from the box, put them in the cup, and then you would put them with your activation chits. And then here's your morale markers and what they're set to, unit movement restrictions, and your victory hexes and conditions. Then you have San Martino, which is from 2 to 14. I'm guessing those are turns. And again, you have available event chits, Austria 2, Sardinia 1, from turns 2 to 7, and then 2 from turns 8 to 14. And again, you get all of and then there's some special rules, how victory is determined. The heights of Solferino, this is 1 to 14. Looks like Austria and France get events, and so on. Let's see. Then you got Campo di Medoli. I'm not Italian, can't speak it. 2 to 14, Austria and France get events, and so on. I'm not going to go into this all that much, just kind of showing you what's on offer here. And here is all our brothers. The Battle of Solferino. This is the whole kit and caboodle, I'm assuming. And you've got the three different forces here. And then, well, these are the activation chits. And then here are the event chits. And morale markers and victory point hex control at start. And there's all kinds of things in here for victory points for the various locations and so on. Victory determination and your scenario special rules. And then you've got historical notes here in the back. And on the back cover, event description chart. So that's interesting. All right, so now let's look at some of the components here. So we got a couple counter sheets here. And I had it, well, nope, I had it right side up the first time. So here you go. We've got, well, they're kind of bottom to bottom here. So you can see here. So these would be the Austrians. You can see the flag. Here's Franz Josef. And some of the units, Brunner, etc. See some of these guys here. A lot of Austrians on this sheet. They're different colors. And we have some shaken markers at the bottom. Control markers. Of course, they all have a back. So the ones that do not have anything on the back, those would be detachments. Disrupted markers. And on this sheet, this would be counter sheet 2. We have some French. Yeah, I believe that's French and the Sardinians. There's Napoleon the Third. There's Emmanuel. And more on the back, of course. And here's the map. It's just slightly too large to fit in my shot here, but you've got most of it sitting right here. Here's Solferino right here in the middle. And then you've got Medoli down here. Cavriana, and some forest and some ridges. You can see the various elevations and so on. Decent, pretty good map, I think. Everything is pretty clear. Sometimes busy maps can be a little difficult. This one, it seems to me, the terrain, different terrain types are all pretty well evident. So there's San Martino up here. So this is a look at the map. You're only missing that little bit at the top and this bit at the bottom, and then a little bit of the left. That's it. I mean, you're seeing like 95% probably. All right, now let's see what else we have in here in terms of, charts. So here we have the French and Sardinian setup chart. We have the Austrian setup chart. We have our terrain chart. These are all single-sided so far. So again, you can see examples of the different levels there: canal, stream, cultivated field, etc. Everything is pretty well laid out there. Then we've got our assault combat table right up top with your column shifts and results. I really like the way this is laid out, actually. It's a little bit different than many, but I like it. It's very cool. Fire combat table with the fire combat shifts, same kind of thing that we saw on the assault, very similar in most ways. Then we have our game, turn, and morale core track and a victory point track, and they actually look like tracks. That's kind of cool too. Okay. Force display box. This is the Allies. And this is the Austrians. Then we have the same thing we saw on the back of the scenario booklet, which is the event description box. All right, so that will do it. That is All Our Brothers, the Battle of Solferino, 1859, designed by Bryan Armor, and using an adaptation of Hermann Luttmann's blind sword system. It is from the Second Italian War of Independence and took place in 1859. So that's going to do it. If you have any comments or questions, you know what to do. Post a comment in the comment section, and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you for watching. I always want to say that because it is true. I do appreciate it. And I guess that's it. We're done. There'll be a playthrough at some point. Not sure when. But for now, we are out of here. So I'm Joe. This is Hexed Encountered. And until next time, as always, happy gaming.